Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of That Man Jesus Ministry. I'm joined today once again by our frequent guest. This is financial professional Kimberly Barnes. And from there, I will let her further introduce herself.
Well, hello. As always,
Hi.
I'm happy to be here. How are you doing, Miss Nancy?
I'm well. How are you doing, Kim? I'm just upset you're not in the Detroit area because I would love for you to join us tomorrow at Denitra's event.
Oh, that would be so great. I hate that I'm not there too, man. I'll have to make some plans to get out there for sure. I
Yes,
love to
yes.
travel, so then the whole being able to work wherever I go helps.
Right,
So,
right. Plus, you have some
but
family here from
I
what you've been
do,
telling me. So
I
you
do,
got to
I
come
do
and see
on
your
both sides.
fam.
Yeah, I need to. They're all well, one side is all in Arkansas right now at our
Mhm.
family reunion, and wish I were there. Sometimes you just can't do everything. But yeah, thanks for the invite again. As always, I'm excited to be here. I love having our chats. It's always so interesting and just kind of getting the mind going and in the
Mhm.
direction that I like. I'm a Capricorn. They say all we do is work, but I think we do more than that. But yeah, I am a financial professional, as you mentioned. I work with Global Financial Impact, or GFI. Love, love,
Mhm.
love that company for so many different reasons. The fulfillment factor. We, place a very high standard on, be faith first, family, finance, fitness, and fun. Those are our 5 F's, our fulfillment formula. That's how we live. So, and we want to help everyone else to everyone we can, I should say, to live their dreams, protect the
Mhm.
families as many as we can, and just also building entrepreneurs. And I know that's kind of what you mentioned was kind of your subject tonight.
Yeah, I mean that's what Denisha will be talking about tomorrow. So in terms of zodiac signs, we know we use a symbol as of the cross as Christians, but since I'm born in February, you could say I'm an Aquarius. So
I'm a
yeah.
Capricorn.
So
I'm right on the cusp.
so yeah, all love, not as much work, but a lot of free spirit going on. Um, but anyway, let's go ahead and get into tonight's topic. So we are talking about entrepreneurship. This kind of has been the vein since we've actually started doing the podcast together.
Mhm.
Well, we started with financial literacy, and then that's kind of spiraled into business. So tell us about your journey as an entrepreneur. You filled us in a little bit about you having a State Farm office with your ex-husband now.
Mhm.
Also working with American Express before you started what you're doing now. But on the business side, what else would you like to share about your business experience?
Oh, yeah. First of all, I wouldn't even consider myself an entrepreneur when I did it with my husband at the time. He was
Mhm.
the entrepreneur. I
Okay.
never thought that was going to, well, I'll say I never thought that that industry would be where I would do it. I thought maybe I'd do something, I don't know, something more in line with what, more creative, I guess.
Hmm.
I really didn't have a lot of direction, but I knew that corporate wasn't the stop for me. It was never really comfortable, but I never had it in my
Hmm.
head that I was an entrepreneur until much later. And
So basically, what you're saying,
yeah,
like you two really didn't run the business together.
not really. I was the wife in the office who had a
Hmm.
license and sold, you know what I mean? And I didn't feel like I wanted to be in control. So it really worked out with our dynamics because
Hmm.
he does like to be in control of things, and he is that boss kind of person, and I wasn't. I mean, that leader within had not come out yet. So that's why I say I don't
Yeah.
really think that I would consider that part, but it was an experience. So it did give me some,
Hmm.
foundation for where I am today. So I guess you could count that. But when I finally, it was many years later when I realized that, after training other people to do in their business and
Hmm.
working for other companies, I was like, wait a minute, well, I had a license. Why don't I get my license and just do it myself? But of course, I was only thinking like part-time. I was like, I just need a little extra money. It's no big deal.
Hmm.
Still wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to do this full time. And the biggest reason I don't think I was thinking that is because I didn't really have that belief that I could do it full time, like that full position type situation. Takes a lot of belief and willingness to step out there.
Yeah, and confidence in yourself as
Confidence,
well.
yes, that was huge. That was huge for me. I did not have a lot of confidence in that way. My confidence was in other areas, but definitely wasn't something that I thought I would be an entrepreneur. But as I got, more into sales, and when I worked at American Express, as you mentioned, I had some success there and was there for 7 years. And a lot of the time enjoyed my time. And, then sales just got a little bit, I feel like there's a like an end date to that at some point, especially for corporate. But when you think about how hard you work for, someone else,
another company,
right. And then that same skill, I was grateful to develop that skill. I think I had some amazing training and experience there, and American Express is a great company to work for. I would go back, but I don't know if I want to go back in sales because I'm like, I might as well sell for myself. So
right.
Yeah, but I did, when I left American Express, I did step into the entrepreneurial world for a good year and a half. But the first thing I learned, not the first thing, I'll say I learned it as I was doing it, is number one, you can't chase 2 rabbits and expect to catch one. I was trying to build this business over here and work this business over here, and that doesn't work. It really doesn't. So, I mean, you can have multiple streams of income and multiple businesses, but you can't start 2 of them at the same time that you have to run on your own. So I learned that. I had a lot of fun, but I went broke doing it, And the other thing that I found, as you were saying that we were just talking before we got on air about evolving as an entrepreneur. And that, I will say, initially, I thought of being an entrepreneur as I think a lot of people do, just being in control of my time. I can do what I want. I can go, but that's so misleading. It's not the same. You have to treat yourself as your own employee. And, until you get to the point where you have employees, but you still have to have that discipline, the structure, and actually sit and do the work. Because, working from home, as we know, laundry, dishes,
there's a lot of distractions.
Lots of distractions.
Yeah.
Lots. Let me sit down and make these calls. Okay. Well, let me clean my desk first. That was my whole day, doing a whole lot, being a whole lot of busy with a whole lot of results oriented activities.
Non-producing activities.
Absolutely. So that has been something that I've learned, to go back, and now a full-time day is it has to be structured. I mean, and it's not like you don't have any flexibility, but you have to have some structure and make sure that at least a good part of your day is doing some results oriented activities, or you don't have a business if that's not what you're doing. You're just,
you need some kind of income producing activities. And a lot of times individuals in sales who have their own business, they make those calls. Like they'll have like a 2-hour call block first thing in the morning. That's your income producing activity. That's where you get your bread and butter from. So then whatever happens the rest of the day, so be it. But they they have to have that 2 or 3 hour block because they know that's where their income comes from. And then other things that come after that, second and third priorities, if you get to it that day, that's fine. If not, the next day. But you have to be consistent in order to build up your sales funnel and get those prospects, which eventually will turn into leads and hopefully sales and customers or clients.
Right. You're exactly right. On point. And that was how I did my day to day. We started with a block of phone calls, and that's not the fun part, but that's the part that you got to remember. That's what you did for, the last company.
Another company. Yeah,
exactly. And it doesn't matter if you're in sales or customer service or whatever it is. If it's something that you you're going into your entrepreneurial side and you need to contact customers for whatever the reason is, and typically it's a sales situation, those calls aren't fun. And we all, kind of hold the phone for a minute like, oh, okay,
the 100-pound phone. The 100-pound phone.
Oh, it is. It's like that first one. And it's so hard. But you gotta do it. You gotta just do it. Don't think about it too much. Just dial and be ready to actually suck for a while too, and be okay with it, because that's how you get better.
Well, some people like cold calling. I personally do not like cold calling. I actually hate cold calling. But you do have some salespeople, they swear by like the white pages, if those still exist, where they literally open up a phone book and they just start dialing numbers for 2 hours. And I'm looking at them like, you're crazy. But they said, even if you go up to like 1,000 people and you ask them, would you like to buy a widget? Would you like to buy a widget? Do you want a widget? Do you want a widget? Somebody eventually is going to say yes. And I personally feel like that is a huge waste of time, that you've got to go through that many. Like, you have to burn through so many leads just to get to a good one. I much more prefer to work in a warm market and then ask for referrals from there. But warm market leads, they can be very time consuming. You usually meet people at events. You ask for referrals. So you're going to be spending some time one way or the other. But I actually don't say I hate prospecting, because I'll usually at least start calling with someone that I already know.
Right.
And then from there, you just have to see it as you meeting people. And then from there, establishing relationships. Because like, once you get that first initial interest, or someone says, I'm interested, call me back later, or, you don't complete the sales call on the first call usually, now you're establishing a rapport when you meet with them the second or third time. So now you're trying to build a rapport in a relationship. So then it becomes like a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, no, that's all true. Fortunately for me, when I was with American Express, I did straight up cold calls. Those are not fun. But
I'm like, the fact that you stayed with that for 7 years, that is like highly commendable, because it is very difficult to do.
It is. I won't downplay it. It is. But it is one of those things that I think I'm grateful for the experience. I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. And I definitely is not what I do now. Our leads are warm. Plus we have our own way of developing a market as well. And then of course, like you said, referrals, but those cold calls, like it brought me the confidence to the point where I can say, shoot, if I can do that, I can do anything. I'm not, it doesn't feel good it still doesn't feel good when people say no. And it still doesn't feel good when people up on you, but it's a lot easier to shake it off. It's not personal. And that's the biggest thing.
They don't know you anyway.
They don't. And
if they hang up on you and you're like, well, I didn't know who the person was anyway, just move on to the next.
Exactly.
Next.
Exactly. I talk to my phone and I'm like, that was rude. Anyway, a next call, But that same person, I'll call them back a week later or a couple days later, because you just, you have to kind of think, number one, like you said, you shrug it off. It's not personal. They don't know you. And plus, you see all the spam calls we get, like that's annoying. So they've already don't want to hear from somebody, but you just, and they may not be having a good day that day. Call them a couple days later and, go with a different approach. I mean, you have to kind of get to the point where, play games with it, or one of the things that I got from, and this again, I say Myron Golden all the time, because a lot of our training with GFI, because we have some of the most amazing training, chase the no, get the no's, love the no's. And there's a book, I can't remember which one because I read so many.
You got to chase the no's to get to the yeses.
Yes, chase the no's, because every no is one step closer to a yes. And if you look at it that way, then it makes the no's more fun. And you just, there's a game. And when I was talking about Myron Golden, I cannot remember what he called it. I call it, what is it? 3 no's and a yes, I think it is. So if you dial until you get, is it 3 no's or 10 no's? It might be 10 no's and a yes. I gotta get it, but I think it's 10. So you're looking for the 10 no's. You get to, let's say you got to 3 to 4 to 5, and then somebody says yes. Now you got to start up. Now you do it again. and you get your 10 no's, either
Mm-hmm.
you stop at 10 no's or 3 yeses, I think it is. It's something like that. I'm gonna look at it. I
Mm-hmm.
remember it's been a while, and now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh, I need to play that game with myself. It makes something that's not fun at least a
Mm-hmm.
little bit fun, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
chasing a no is you got to get them out of there because you're gonna get no's, and it's all a law
Mm-hmm.
of numbers, law of large numbers. So
Yeah.
the more people, and that's what you're talking about, the 1,000 people that you go talk to, you're going to get somebody out of there, and more than one somebody if you're doing 1,000 that say yes. And you don't have to be good at it. You just have to be
Mm-hmm.
persistent, you know?
Well, when you talked about, second and first, I mean, all of us, we go from not being proficient at something to being semi-proficient to being proficient to being good at something and becoming excellent and exceptional. So we all kind of have to go through that spectrum with anything. But I will say the longer you stick with something, like you said with the cold calling, if you're using a script, you're going to feel more comfortable with the language. Sooner or later, as you become better at it, it builds your confidence and your
Mhm.
closing ratio is going to get much better. So say it takes you 10 no's to get one yes. Well, as you're constantly practicing and perfecting that script, sooner or later, your closing ratio is going to be down to 5 no's to 1 yes. So
Yeah.
you do get better at it if you stick with it. And one of the things that I love that Denitra said earlier this week is that one reason going to our question closer to the end, why do so many 50% businesses fail in 5 years, 65% fail in 10 years is the person just didn't want to stick with it. They just gave up and walked away.
Yep.
And they could have been right on the cusp of, getting introduced to that right person that would have taken their business to the right level. But they're like, you know what? This is too hard. I've been doing this for too long. I'm not seeing the results I wanted. And forget it. I can just go back to work. I can be working less hours, making the same amount or more money, and they just give up.
Yep, that's totally it. Have you ever seen the little cartoon where it's the guy who's digging and digging and digging, and then he's ready to quit, and the gold is like 1 foot away?
One dig away.
Just
Yeah.
dig a little bit more, and that's the thing. I agree 100% when I
Mhm.
with Denitra, that is why most people don't succeed, is because they give up too soon. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's going to take this long, sometimes it's this long, and sometimes it's this long. It just depends on
Mhm.
how, your timing, and what, in my opinion and my faith in it all, is that God is going to allow you to go through things that are going to build you to where, when that success comes, that you can be the person who can handle the level of success you're about to get. So if you
Right.
just keep going, it has to break at some time, at some point. Keep
Yeah.
going, keep believing, keep persistent, consistent. Just don't give up. I mean,
Mhm.
that's really the difference between someone who succeeds and someone who doesn't. You don't give up. And you also are still coachable. No matter how great you get and
Mhm.
how far you go, you can always be better, and there's always someone you can learn from. So that's the other thing, is getting your pride and your ego out of the way, and
Mhm.
understanding that although you are really, really good at this may be the other thing that takes you to the next level, because there's always a next level.
Absolutely. And there were so many good nuggets on what you just said, but one of the things that you were just talking about is being coachable. Well, that's one mistake, is that some entrepreneurs have no coach. And two, the dirty D word, not the dirty D on TV, but the dirty D word, they're not disciplined. And then
Right.
three, they're inconsistent. So if you're inconsistent with, for example, since we've been talking about cold calling with the 2 or 3 hour time block, you can't expect to be successful because you didn't follow the formula. Like you said, what was the word that you used earlier when we were talking about having your systems in place? You've got,
Standards.
say that again.
Standards.
Well, like routines and procedures. If you're
Yeah.
not going to make the commitment to be
Mhm,
on the phone 2 or 3 hours, and at
mhm,
the end of the week, your numbers look crazy.
mhm.
And every week's not going to look the exact same way. But once you know your sales conversion ratio, like say take a good month to it.
Yeah.
That's why we look at go back over our financials every quarter. If you're following that same plan and you're being consistent with that cold call block, your numbers should start to look similar, and you should start to notice some trends after, 1 to 2 quarters. You should start to see some trends. And then even within 1 quarter, 1 month for that matter, you can start making projections or figure out, what do I need to tweak so I can be stronger the next month? Because maybe 3 hours of cold calling isn't enough. Maybe I need to bump it up to 4 hours. When I say I do like a lot of networking events, I've kind of been getting back into that sphere to figure out which women I want to be coming to these That Man Jesus in person events.
Mm-hmm.
Well, networking events don't happen every day. So with that, I like business to business marketing as well. And I don't like the cold calling door to door, but I do like to go to businesses and just walk around, especially really busy business districts. Like we have a few in Detroit. There's little pockets in different major cities in the area. And you just go in there and introduce yourself. And like a lot of those are small business owners. You get right to that, what do you call that, key person, or at least a gatekeeper. You don't have to go through as many, what do you call it, people, or get through as many people to get to the gatekeeper is what I'm saying, or key person. So usually you can establish that relationship. You might not walk out with the sales, but you're just building rapport. And then even from there, every time you're in that area, stop by in again, bring some samples, bring some gifts, talk to them, invite them out for coffee. And it's all about building those relationships. And to me, that gets you a lot further, in my opinion, than cold calling. But everybody has their own system that they like to use and work. So you have to do what works for you.
Absolutely. And our business is total relationship. Like it's a relationship building. I mean, when you're calling leads, it's still a relationship. I've always been one who's more of a, I like to say a customer service oriented salesperson, so to speak, in the sense of I like to build that relationship and that rapport. And it's a longer sale. Typically, I won't say never. I was not the best at first call closing. But I was one of the ones that my manager would always say, she's like, well, I know Kim's people are going to pick up because, when you call them back, sometimes they don't pick up. But my ratio of people picking up my second, third, and fourth call was pretty good. And that's when I would get my sales. So it's a longer process, but you also, when you're building that relationship, and a lot of times you're getting more business out of it. It just takes longer.
Right.
But, yeah, not to say I can't first call close. I do that as well and still try to build that rapport because, people, when they purchase, even, things that they really need, like life insurance and things like that, and their retirement programs, but they still are buying on emotion. They're not purchasing these things that they need, and they know they need because they're thinking logically. Very rarely do you have someone who's just thinking logically and adding up numbers. They're usually making a purchase because they feel something. They feel the trust. They feel the connection.
Yeah, they got to have the trust and the connection. I want to say too, that's where your sales presentation comes in. You're basically persuading them to make a purchase, but nobody wants to be sold. And I love the way that you had talked about earlier on, combining the education with the sale. You're like, look, I'm here to educate people. I'm here to inform you. And then you allow them to make the intelligent decision on, yes, I want to start this policy today, or I need to delay for whatever reason, X, Y, Z. And then, that turns into a follow-up call. But yeah, you're educating people. And the best salespeople out there are going to be the ones who are actually educating people, not the ones that's trying to sell them something. Because like you said, even when you're building those relationships, it might take you a little bit longer to close, but your retention rate is going to be so much higher because you have that trust. Now, who's going to trust somebody after talking to them on the phone for one time?
Right. And that is huge. And that's something that we take a whole lot of pride in. We have about 95% or higher persistency, basically meaning that 95% of our clients stay on the books long term. And it's because of how we approach it. And like you said, it's education first. So we're not selling something to someone, although we are in sales. It's more we like to say we're teaching people how to purchase. So it's them making a purchase based on the information that we've given, based on the pain points that we've uncovered, based on the need that we've put in front of them. And then the questions, of course, it's how you pose the questions as well. So, putting that real life, not to say scaring people, but it is a scary thing when you think about the fact that something can happen and your family's not going to be able to take care of themselves because you didn't set something up for them. So
or they're having the GoFundMe page is spaghetti dinners to pay for a funeral.
Yes, that's heartbreaking to me. Honestly, I mean, there are so many times that I really feel like it doesn't make, I'm not gonna say I boohoo and cry every time I see it, but it's something that I feel in my gut that just really hurts when I see someone put out there a GoFundMe. And then when you think about how many people that you have talked to, that's like, yeah, we can get insurance for you, and they don't want to talk about it. So many people see life insurance as talking about their demise, and it's really
about death.
Yeah, and it's really not. It's more about talking about what is inevitably going to happen.
Right.
None of us get out of this alive, as was it Les Brown said, the most dangerous look, living life is a big what do you say, is unpredictable. I can't remember how he put it, but it's like,
but death is finite. We're all gonna die at one point.
It is finite. He's like, that's the most thing that we would, when you take a chance and just, that's the biggest chance in life. Like, we are going to die at some point. We don't get out of this alive. So why not prepare for it? That's just, we're not talking about killing you tomorrow, because we don't have any control over that. But like I said, it's just more of a education and people being open, but it's how you approach it. And don't make it something that sounds so, because we don't even really talk about life insurance. That's not our conversation. That's really not even our conversation.
The other thing too is that, I think that's people's greatest fear is death. That if you ask somebody like, what's your greatest fear? They'll say, well, fear of heights, or, fear of falling, fear of a plane crash, fear of a car accident. That's because the worst case scenario is that you will die, but you're going to die anyway. So it's like, and the chances of those happening, not really the car crash, but the plane crash is like one in, I don't know what this year, because it's been kind of crazy. There's planes falling out the sky left and right. But like one in, 10,000, a million. It's just it's a very rare possibility of that happening. But I feel like the enemy of our soul, he really plays on those, he plays with those strings, that someone can be so afraid. Some people are afraid to literally walk out the house now. They were afraid of COVID when COVID came around. And it's like, you can't be so afraid of everything that you're afraid to live. Like, you still have to live your life.
Exactly. And don't live in fear. And the enemy plays on all our fears. And definitely.
Absolutely. And that's another reason why a lot of people don't start a business. They're so afraid of failure. But it's like, what's the worst case scenario? And that's why we say, like, get your systems in place while you still have a full-time job. You still have an income coming in. Well, worst case scenario is that you fall on your face and you fail. Okay, so use the failure, as Denzel Washington says, as a lesson. Figure out, what did you learn from that? What do you still not know that you need to go out and get the education so you can succeed the next time? And just see failure as a lesson and a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. And, you're like, well, that's why I didn't want to do this in the first place. I knew it wasn't going to work. Well, maybe you don't have the right education.
You don't have the right attitude.
To work. And attitude takes you a long way too. Attitude is everything. So attitude determines your altitude.
Absolutely. If you're already saying, I knew it wasn't going to work, then you already had it in your mind.
You're already setting yourself up for defeat.
Exactly. And like I like how David Goggins says, he no longer looks at it as failure. He looks at it as my first, second, third attempt. You know what I'm saying? But failure in and of itself, that's where we learn. You learn a lot more from failing than you do from succeeding. So you've got to look at it, like you said, like Denzel says, it's the failure. What did I get from this? What did I learn from this? And then you grow from that.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, like, when you look at students who like have 4.0s and 4.3, 4.5s, like, what did they actually learn? Because it honestly, I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. But if you're constantly getting A's on everything, it's like, it kind of gives you the impression that this student already knew everything.
Yeah,
So
they
when
haven't had to work.
you're never struggling, you don't struggle
Yeah.
with any subject, like you're just, an ace at everything, they're not learning
Well,
anything.
yeah, and I think that it's that they're not challenging themselves in the right places. If
Right.
that's all that if they've only ever succeeded, then I think it was,
No, well, academically, I would say.
yeah,
So
well, yeah,
let's say if and this is one reason why they say like now these Ivy League schools are not just taking book smart students, because what they're finding is that some students who are just naturally intellectual, they're lacking in other areas such as
of
social
course.
skills, such as like,
Mhm.
giving back to their community, volunteering, things like that. So they want more of a well-rounded individuals, like they're not involved in sports versus someone who's just a bookworm and gets all A's and everything.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We all have downs, have fall short
Areas of
somewhere.
growth.
Course. There's some play, and it's a matter of, and there's nothing wrong with someone who just stays in their lane and they're comfortable there and they don't have aspirations for something higher. But if you're feeling like something is missing, then it's
Mhm,
probably where you haven't challenged yourself. And a lot of us like to stay in our comfort zone instead of
mhm,
stepping out of the comfort zone. And that's another thing that makes the difference between being an entrepreneur and being someone who is absolutely not going to succeed as an entrepreneur.
mhm,
And when you're looking at doing something for yourself, you have to learn to be comfortable in being uncomfortable. That's where you
absolutely.
grow. That's just where you grow. And get over yourself. I had to tell myself that many times. Get over yourself.
Mhm,
This is not about you. This is about the growth. You're trying to help somebody. Get over yourself. And that's the constant conversation, because a lot of the fear that we have is, what are they going to think? It doesn't matter. It could be a
mhm,
phone call. It could be, getting up in front of people. It could be just having a conversation with someone. And it's like, you're always thinking about, what are they going to think? Even if it's in
mhm.
the back of your mind. But what we don't really consider is that they're not thinking that at all. You know what I
And
mean?
they're
Like,
probably gonna forget 90% of what you
oh,
said anyway as soon as you're done talking.
absolutely. Get over that. Get over yourself. You're not that important. Not to No offense to anyone. I'm not that important that
Right.
my little fears of what are they thinking? They're not thinking about me, probably. More than likely. So just, you got to just be willing to step out there and mess up. Like I said,
Mhm,
get through the suck. The faster you get through the hard times and the mistakes, the
mhm,
faster you get to be better. Like you said, the more you
mhm.
do it, the better you become. And then the more comfortable you become. I mean, but you still got to push yourself to that. If you want to get to the next level, you never stay comfortable where you are. You got to keep pushing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now we can move on to question number 2. How do you believe entrepreneurs think differently than other professionals?
Number one, they believe in what they are doing. It's
Mhm,
a that's huge, and that's what I
mhm,
had to kind of understand, besides the confidence, because confidence can be built in, reading, doing, and so forth, but belief is different. And that's what I have
mhm,
found in my journey, is that I could find confidence in, presenting the information. I've been in the industry long enough
mhm,
that I can, even if I don't really know everything, I can at least sound like I know most of it. And I'm never going to tell
mhm.
you something that's not true. So I'll speak intelligently, and then I'm like, oh, let me get the answer for you. So I know how
Right.
to not manipulate, but to maneuver those
Mhm,
conversations and make
mhm,
sure that I'm right about things and feel that confidence. But the belief that I could succeed and be a six,
mhm,
7, 8 figure earner, that's the problem. That was the problem. The
mhm.
belief that I can build a team, that I can help people, that was the part that I was like, because for so many years, and that kid inside who was so insecure and not confident
Mhm.
in herself, um, kind of rears its ugly head and just says, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can tell people and you like to teach people, but you're not going to build a big team. You're not going to be like
Mhm.
figures, right? Like you may hit 6, like, you've done that, but you can't,
Mhm.
I don't see you doing that. So it's been all, even 6 figures, it's all been a a belief, and in the back of my mind, even though there were times that I'm telling myself, oh girl, you can do this, you got this, that lack of belief would creep up again. That's like, but can you? So that's
Yeah.
really, I think, huge.
And I think the belief in your why you're doing this, because when you are picking up that 100-pound call or phone to make that first call, and you don't believe it's going to work, it's not, because even the Bible says, as a man thinks, so is he. I
So
have
is
to
he.
find the
Amen.
exact address, but it is definitely in the Bible.
It
And
is.
even during Jesus' 3-year earthly ministry, they would people would walk up to Jesus and say, they say, can you heal me of, whatever their condition was? And then Jesus would say, well, do you believe I can heal you? And they say, yes, I believe. And so, Jesus said, well, belief is another word for faith. He said, be it unto you according to your faith. So it wasn't necessarily Jesus' power that healed people. It was their belief in Jesus' power that healed people.
Amen.
So there's a big difference between the two. And I think a lot of times we don't believe what God can do in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't believe that we can do it. So it's like you said, you're really already defeated before you pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so when, we have that really bad 2-block sales call period, and we're like, I knew this wasn't going to work. But when you made that first initial call, that's what you told yourself. And that's what manifested, because that's what you believe. So I think we really have to have a positive belief system built in. And that's why we talked about having that morning routine or ritual of spending time with God, quiet time, prayer, meditation, reading, whatever you need to motivate yourself and make sure that you have that belief system in place before you even get out there and start grinding. I think that's really important.
No, it really is. I agree with that 100%, because without faith, works are dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
But remember the first podcast that I came on.
Mm-hmm.
One of your first questions was, what are we giving up this year? And I said self-doubt. And that was strictly because it hit me that when I doubt myself, I doubt what God's made. I doubt what God has put inside of me and my abilities that have always been there, that the enemy has worked on against me for as long as I can remember.
Right.
That I had no reason in my upbringing that I should be so insecure or feel like I'm out of place. I was a good student. I was a relatively good child. I didn't get caught with a lot. My parents were very, very good. Like especially when I look at and listen to other people and their issues that they have with their parents, my gosh, I was blessed with the best. And, oh, you're beautiful, you're smart, you can do anything that you put your mind to. Those are the things I heard, but that's not what was in my head. You don't belong here. You're not cute. You're not, you're not as good as this person. You're not that. I don't know what that was not coming from my parents. So that's that gift that gets pushed down inside when the enemy has a hold and can get in. And that's the first thing he grabs is your mind. It controls.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as a man thinks, so is he. That's Proverbs 23:7. I looked that up real quick.
There you go. I know some of the words, but I don't know where to find them yet.
Well, we're tag teaming, so we don't have Angela on here. So when one of us is talking, the other one can be looking up scripture references.
Exactly.
That's
what that scripture memory will help with. I'm working on that with my Bible study. So I've got some down, but I got a long way to go.
You and me both. If there's one thing you would change about your entrepreneurial path, what would you have done differently?
Oh my gosh, listen and stop being so stubborn. Like I really did have in my path, because of the industry that I chose and the company that I finally found that really has systems in place. I just lack of confidence too. But if I had just gotten outside of myself and done the steps, follow the system. The system is already set for you. I would have been so much farther, so much faster, and not made all of the mistakes and stumbles that I have. I don't regret necessarily anything. I mean, in the sense of, yeah, I wish I had done that, but I don't regret it only because of the fact that it has led me to go through things that have made me much, much stronger. That I don't have any doubt that when I do, my team is I have a not a huge team right now, but I'm still building my team. But I feel like I'm more equipped to really help people now because my experiences are testimony really. And sometimes I kind of have to hold back because I'm like, I don't want to, give y'all too much, testimony, but it's very few things. Like I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's going through the industry, and she's going through steps that I've already taken. And I said a few things to her and she's like, yes. And I'm like, oh, and this and this. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's me. And I'm like, okay, let me not go too far.
Right.
But let's make this about her, not me. But it was resonating with her because she's going through those same things. And, I did tell her and I gave her, the direction that I would have done knowing what I know now. But of course, part of that would be requiring a leap of faith that I know I wouldn't have been ready for. And it doesn't sound like she is yet either, but I want to tell her, girl, just jump, but I hesitate to do that because that's where it comes back to what if I'm wrong, and that's kind of something I still battle with. I don't want to tell somebody, go ahead and do it, just do it. And then they do it. And I'm like, ugh. But that's also, it's what I wish I had done and had the confidence to do when I had a lot less responsibility. But
yeah, because when we talk,
go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
When we talk about having your systems in place, one of the systems is replacing your income before you walk away from that full-time job, because we never want to put anyone in a position where they feel, like a financial lurch. But I will tell you, once you are out there, like Denisha has said, her faith was really radical. She just went and turned in her 2-week resignation and she started working her business. And I have done things like that in the past, but like as you get older and you mature and you take on more financial obligations, that becomes harder and harder to do. And it also becomes harder and harder to walk away. So it's definitely a blessing when you don't have as many obligations when you're younger. But I would say, that is definitely one system that you can have in place to start replacing your income now. Don't wait until you're put in that position where you're only leaning on business from your or income from your business. Like start now, like get ahead of the ball, and also work on reducing debt. Eliminating some of these bills so you're not under so much financial stress. If you decide that you do want to work your business full time.
I agree with that. And, sometimes that pressure and that knowing that you either you do or die is a good thing. So if you're ready for that, and when I left American Express, it was not by choice. I was going through a whole lot of things. My mom had passed not too long before that. We had some family illnesses and a lot of things were falling on my shoulders, and my health had failed a little bit as well. So my performance was not where it needed to be. And in sales, it's like 3 strikes you're out type of a situation. So during that time, it was a hard time for me. So, but I did have time off and I had, money that was still coming in and I was still selling on the side. So it wasn't like I was destitute. But when I left Amex, that if I had had the right mindset of girl, do or die, if I had the mindset I have now and the drive that I have and the belief, again, I go right back to belief, then I would have been a lot farther along because I would have started then. But I didn't have that. I didn't have the structure. I didn't have the discipline. I still was thinking in an employee mindset as well. You have
and it sounds like you didn't know about GFI either.
Well, GFI was not in existence yet.
Okay.
But the company that I was working with at that time was where GFI ended up developing from. Because GFI ended up, it ended up being, we call it the practice company, and it ended up that GFI ended up being everything that the practice company was missing, that I didn't even know was missing, because it was a good company and it was where I got a lot of my foundation as far as the relationship building and the education and all of that. GFI just took it and ran with much more benefit. So and much more I think foundation, I really feel like, and it's also, it's not corporate owned, it's owned by agents, so we're all from the top down, we're still helping families, so but yeah, that even if it had not been GFI, I may not have been as far along as I can get with GFI, but I would have been a lot farther along than where I started when I found GFI, because I was really at the bottom. Like, I was kind of ready to just kind of give it up in a way. It was like I had written my last policy and, just was not feeling that something. I just felt something was missing. And that's when, I was, when GFI was placed in front of me, and I took the time to look into it, and I didn't feel like it was just an opportunity. I felt like God was answering prayers. So
that's
that was,
wonderful.
yeah.
When we talk about as a man thinks, so is he, like in layman's terms, another way to put it is what John Maxwell calls the law of the lid, that you can never go higher than, that positive or negative mindset. So I do think it's better to have a growth mindset than a fixed mindset. And a lot of people with that fixed mindset, they probably work better in an employee environment.
Yeah.
Because they don't see the growth. They're limiting themselves to only being able to have a job. So if that's what they, want to do for the rest of their life, and they don't want the financial independence or that time, the time freedom that you can have with your time as well, then that's a decision that they make.
And it's the entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and somebody's got to be an employee, right? and employees, they'll never get rich that way, but they can still be well off and happy and content by living within their means. So I don't, we don't downplay that, but at the same time, when you're talking about the freedom of time, that's where I think a lot of us, because I'll include myself, until I really learned what it was to be an entrepreneur, was I'm gonna have freedom of my time. I do what I want. And we'll keep thinking like that if you want to, but you'll be out of that business real quick. And I learned that real quick too. You really do, like you said earlier, like Denzel says, you got to have
discipline.
Without discipline, you'll never get started, and without consistency, you'll never finish. So you have to have both. And again, goes back to, like you said, the systems in place and standards. Like I was saying, you mentioned having your call blocks. And part of there was a training we had today, as a matter of fact, and they talked about having your standards in place, that you hold yourself to this standard. Like, we call at this time, and these are the number of calls that we need to hit, because you have looked at your tracking as far as how many calls do you need to make to close a sale or to get some, you know what I mean? So all of that is so important. And we don't always consider that when we're just wanting to get out of corporate and not have to answer somebody telling you when you got to be to work. And if you can go take time off, like, that's the worst thing for me. It's like, I ask you for my own time off. What?
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Last question. What is your advice to anyone who's interested in starting a business?
Man, use your imagination and don't limit yourself. Like, sky is the limit. Understand that, God has made us in his image, and God is a creator. Therefore, we are as well. So you have that creative ability within you, and you just need to tap into it, believe in it. And really, I know some people are not quite in their spiritual walk where I am, and I'm not quite where other people are, but I still say, and I will say, I believe you take that to God and really have that personal time with the Lord. Give him your first fruits. The first fruits of the day is, we talk about tithing, and we know that first fruit, and we've already been taught that, but understand that the first fruits of your day are really important too, and have that relationship in those conversations. And one of the things that I have done over probably the last year, I realized I said, um, well, they say, God will give you the desires of your heart.
Mhm.
Um, does not mean that God is going to just give you whatever you want. But what I decided that I needed to do, because I said, I've made a lot of decisions in my life that I feel like were all wrong, right?
Mhm.
And relationships, for one, I'm like, that I don't even want to trust myself anymore. So I'm going to ask God. So what I have done is I will
Mhm.
pray that God will put in my heart what he desires for me, so that I desire what
Mhm.
he wants for me. And that way, the desires of my heart will be fulfilled. So that
Right.
is one of my main prayers. But that's what I would tell you. If you want to be an entrepreneur, don't listen to
Mhm.
anybody that's going to discourage you. If it's somebody with a discouraging voice, shut them out. If there's something,
Absolutely.
absolutely, if there's something that you want to do, that you really feel your heart is in it, then I'm not saying quit your job, because like you said, let's be
Right. One
smart.
person come. Yeah. Use
Exactly.
wisdom.
Smart, but do it. Don't let anybody discourage you. Don't, because a lot of people, what did I think it was, Buster Rhymes, I think, was the one on the podcast I heard him say. He said, everybody thinks you're crazy or delusional until it works. Then all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
a genius.
Yeah.
Don't
Exactly.
let people discourage you, because they are going to encourage or discourage you based on their own limitations, not
Hmm.
yours.
Hmm. Yeah, we talked about that last time we were on with the athletes. Well, thank you so much, Kim. Anyone in the local area who'd like to join us with Denitra Townsend Gregory tomorrow, she's an entrepreneur administrator as well. Feel free to join us at Tango's Restaurant in Southfield, 9 to 11 a.m. So whenever you're in town again, Kim, and you want to stop by to one of our in-person events, we'd love to have you, even as a speaker. So we'll
Oh,
see what we can do to make that happen.
thank you
All
so
right,
much.
everybody, thank you so much for joining us for another podcast of That Man Jesus Ministry. Until next time, we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Kim.
Bye.